Hello and welcome to episode 37 of the Motivational Millennial podcast. Today we speak with John Hankey, who has a really interesting story. He went from working on Wall Street to finding mindfulness, and now he does mindful test taking, helping people get over their test taking jitters through mindfulness. So he shares a really cool journey with us. If you check out the Aftershow afterwards, Blake and I share a little bit more about our take on mindfulness and our experience with it. Also, we have to let you know that yesterday, the personal transformation guide, Motivating Your Millennial Mind, came out. If you would like to get your copy of it, you can go to motivationalmillennial.com/free gift to get that, and hopefully it will help you transform personally.
Yes. But in all seriousness, Ivy has done a really awesome job putting together the 4 limiting mindsets that commonly affect millennials and the 8 motivational tools that we can use to overcome them. So totally worth checking out. It's free and it's awesome. And congratulations, Ivy.
Woo! Woo! Go team! All right, let's go to the episode.
John Hankey. Hello, welcome to the Motivational Millennial podcast, where we talk with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living life with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Blake Brandis.
And I'm Ivy LeClaire.
Our motivational millennial guest today is John Hankey. John is the founder of Mindful Test Taking, which helps students overcome test anxiety by teaching them mindfulness techniques in person and via video conference worldwide. After graduating from Stanford with a degree in mathematics, John traded stock options on Wall Street, where he started practicing mindfulness after work to deal with the stress. John left Manhattan to study economics at Oxford, where his mindfulness practice continued to grow, and by 2010, he had his own life coaching business. John, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you very much. Hello, Ivy. Hello, Blake.
Would you mind sharing what you're up to right now and what you love about it?
Yeah. So I have the company Mindful Test Taking, like you said, and we teach mindfulness techniques to students that get nervous during tests. We help high schoolers, some college students, and then graduate students as well.
I think all of us can relate to needing some help with test anxiety.
All sorts of anxiety.
That's true. And all that's good transferable skills. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the techniques that you share?
Sure. So in our introductory session, we teach people the secret of mindfulness. And excuse me if I'm a little opinionated, but I believe that there is one way to be present. I think that there is a very specific and precise way to be present. And it took me about 2 years of searching to find in my own practice back in 2008, 2007. And once I found it, it's called the reset. And once I found it, I knew that I was, not done per se, but that I had really stumbled onto this ancient practice of meditation that I had been looking for so long.
Could you take us back to 2008 and how you developed this mindfulness practice? Because as we heard in the intro, it sounds like you were in a very high stress Wall Street job at the time.
I was on the trading floor. I was on the New York Stock Exchange and the American Stock Exchange during the financial crisis. And I had about 7 computer screens in front of me every day to look at and monitor, right? So it was very stressful. And so after the bell, I started studying meditation, and I was counting breaths or following the breath. And looking back on it, I wasn't really getting it. I wasn't really getting what I was supposed to be doing. I was constantly beating myself up for never having my mind focused on my breathing, which I think is pretty par for the course for people that sort of jump in with that technique. I met a man, and he taught me the body scan and how to scan my body from head to toe and relax my body one part at a time. And I started out with an audio recording. And, we now have a very similar audio recording on my website, Mindful Test Taking under services or, resources. And it's my voice. And, when I started, it was his voice that I was listening to saying, relax your eyes, relax your jaw, et cetera, all the way down to the tips of your toes. And then I would listen to it again after, 5, 7 minutes. Once I would do it again. And the second time I noticed that I was more relaxed than I was the first time. And he said, that's it. Just do that over and over and over again. And so I did, and I have been doing it for 8 years now, almost 9 years. And my health and life just keep getting better and better. And after 4 months of that, I realized I needed to leave Wall Street so that I could be in an environment that would help me let go of more of my stuff.
Which is interesting that then you went to Oxford, which seems not like an environment where it would be very conducive to letting go of your stuff. Can you talk about how that transition was for you and how you grew through that experience as well?
Absolutely. I left Wall Street in, I believe it was April, and I didn't really know what I was going to do next. I had been studying neurolinguistic programming, hypnosis, meditation under this man, Devin White. And at the same time, I didn't know if I was going to make a profession out of it, right? So I looked into financial economics programs. I didn't want an MBA. I wanted to become an economist, and I thought that mindfulness was something on this side. So Oxford was in their stage 4, round 4 of interviewing for fall of 2009 master's program. And I said, well, I'm not ready to jump into a PhD. So I applied for their master's program and got in super late, almost last minute. And I was like, okay, great. So I went to Oxford 4 months after. I left Wall Street 5 months after. And it was a really stressful year. Graduate school is no joke. They throw a lot of work at you. But I kept my mindfulness practice up. And halfway through my time at Oxford, I really realized that mindfulness was my true passion, and becoming a coach was what I wanted to do. And so as soon as that program was over and I had graduated and finished, I went back to Houston, where I was from, and I started undergoing a pretty rigorous process of getting certified and, getting certifications and trainings in hypnosis and NLP and yoga and all these modalities that were going to help me learn how to overcome, all the limiting beliefs and things that I bumped into on Wall Street and at Oxford.
It's incredible how your journey can take you all of these different paths, and ultimately they end up just reaffirming the truth that's within you, that, you'd found this passion, and then there was still a little bit of discovery around what that passion meant and the way that it would show up in your life.
I'm grateful for that reflection there. I'm like reappreciating it as I'm sharing it with you. It's really great. I do want to come back full circle to the process of being present, in which I don't think I sufficiently explained. The body scan, I view it as, the training wheels. You learn how to relax your body part by part. The reset is actually a simultaneous whole body scan where you do absolutely nothing but notice what you're feeling in your body, what you're listening to around you, what you're smelling, etc. So you're activating your senses, but you're doing so in a way that takes you more deeply into your body and that relaxes your body more and more. The operative term here is progressive relaxation. The more that you practice relaxing, the better that you get at it and the deeper you can go. And so the reset is really, once I learned how to do that, it gave me this way of just coming back to center wherever I was and whenever the time was. So that's continued to be a guiding light for me.
So how do you think that developing this mindfulness practice over the past few years has affected and shifted who you are and who you're able to be in the world?
Sure, that's a great question. To me, practicing presence has sped up the rate at which I've realized who I am and what I'm here to be doing. I'm here to help people. Heal might be a strong word. I'm not a therapist, but I'm here to help people discover who they are. And through my practice over the years, I've really realized how tension is at the root of, I believe, everything that is causing us problems in the world. As a certified hypnotherapist, anytime someone has come to me with some sort of issue or challenge, self-induced tension has been, it's either been characterized by tension or tension has been perpetuating the problem. But as soon as they have released that tension and let go of holding on to that tension with respect to that certain situation, their situation improves / becomes resolved, et cetera, et cetera. And that's not something that I was taught in school.
That's a good reminder. As you've been talking about doing the body scanning and the tension, I've been noticing myself reflecting inward in my own body. And how am I feeling right now? Am I aware of all my senses? John, what's the biggest dream you've achieved so far? And in what ways did you have to grow to achieve it?
Yeah, I would say having the company Mindful Test Taking is, my biggest achievement so far. I've hired 3 independent contractors and trained them myself. It really was, I went on sabbatical a year and a half ago. So I went on sabbatical in November of 2015 and just really wanted some time away so that I could apply all these practices that I had learned onto myself. And it was when I came back from that halfway through last year that I really realized I wanted to take my niche for test taking, which had always been my strongest niche. I wanted to make it my soul niche. And so it was really that clearing process that I got from almost, 7-8 months away that gave me that clarity when I came back and gave me that sort of internal readiness. So.
Was it challenging to focus on just one thing? I know that's always the hardest thing for me, is to say, I'm only going to do this one thing.
It's probably the best business decision I've ever made. To be quite honest, it was a lack mentality that prevented me from specializing. It was a fear of, well, if I only focus on test taking and I don't take on people that have a phobia or fear of public speaking or something like that, then I'm going to let go of all this business. And it's really just hasn't been the case. It's really been when I focus on this one niche, then when I come across people that have this ailment, they are so much more likely to explore working with me and with us because all of our marketing is designed for their specific situation. So.
That clarity is really powerful. And even just thinking about it from a potential customer or someone at a school, right? You are saying, okay, I need help with test taking. Oh, here's mindful test taking. Here's what it is. I'm curious what experiences you've had with some of the students you've been working with. Are there any specific stories that stick out of a student who had major anxiety or stress around testing who, after doing the program, changed maybe perhaps even more than just their academic life, but even their personal life as well?
Sure. So, I'll start with the more general, which is I love stats. I was a big athlete growing up, and I love math. So, I would say to date, around 90% of our students feel calmer during the test, and around 75-80% raise their test scores as a result of working with us. So that in and of itself, I think, is a testament to the fact that we're really onto something and that we have been for quite some time. And some stories, my very first student took the GMAT and then he realized, okay, I can do way better. And he didn't really study a whole lot between that and his next test. He said, you know what, I kind of overstudied for the first one. So he and I did a 50-minute phone call. And we got him so relaxed in there that he raised his GMAT score by 110 points out of 800.
Wow.
And that was my very first student. This was like a few months after being home from Oxford, and so there's this. And so that's when I really realized that I was onto something. And he said, yeah, I really credit your work for that. I had another student who was getting D's and F's in school, and we did about 5 or 6 sessions, and he was an AB student. And then I checked in years later, and his grades were still up there in the AB range. So those are just really gratifying stories. And there's so many more on top of that, someone finally passed their medical boards. We just found out that the first student that went through our revamped program late last year got into her top choice college after raising her score with us. So it's a really gratifying industry and job to be in.
Yeah, that's incredible. And what a blessing to have that first experience be such a win for both the student and yourself. And also, how cool is it that everything is so quantifiable? You can really see it was raised by 110 points. Very satisfying.
Yeah, totally.
Will you share a story of the most significant challenge that you faced so far and how you have overcome it?
I would say switching from finance to holistic health has probably been my biggest challenge. I mean, I was fresh out of college. I was in finance in New York, and, everyone around you is, making a nice living. And so, I didn't really realize until I left finance, like, oh, wow, it's going to be a challenge to be able to make a living and provide for myself doing something that I love to do. And so now I've met with hundreds of clients since 2010 and logged thousands of hours as a mindfulness and life coach and certified hypnotherapist. And so I would say that's a really big challenge. And I would say I wouldn't change it for the world. I just wish I would have known going into it how much of an effort and a challenge it would be.
How do you think that would have changed your experience?
I think I would have been quicker to find a mentor. I had mentors, especially through all the certifications, but one great piece of advice that I would give is to find someone that's either doing something that you're already doing or doing something similar to it. And, work as an apprentice under them. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's pretty common for people like naturopathic doctors to find a clinic where there's already an established naturopathic doctor there, and then to work as an apprentice under them until they get enough experience to have their own, patient database. Certainly wish I would have followed some lead like that. But, the upside is that I've gotten to learn a lot of things. The School of Hard Knocks is well trodden, and I feel grateful to have sort of gotten through that phase.
That's a good reminder. I think sometimes the ego can be really strong and say, I have to do it all on my own. I have to figure it out. I have to be the original. And to your point, there are so many amazing people and resources out there who are explicitly wanting to help us on our journey, or who have done the thing that we're trying to do or done a version of it. And just one example, even being in the millennial space, there's some other millennial podcasts or millennial online communities. And one of the decisions I'm really grateful for is early on, we just decided to embrace that. We're like, these are our people. You know what I mean? Like, these are our friends and our colleagues. And so we've reached out to them. We've had them on our show. And I think that collaborative spirit is really powerful. And so I appreciate you sharing that collaborative focus.
I'm actually really curious, going from finance to the mindfulness work is going to be a total shift in the culture and in the communities. And so I'm wondering what it was like to experience that shift in culture so drastically.
It provided immediate relief, especially in my early days. I was tutoring calculus and mathematics on the side for, say, 15 hours a week, and then launching my coaching business, separately. So that gave me a lot more stable financial footing with which I could try things out, make mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. The really cool thing is that when I'm doing work with someone, whether it's hypnosis or mindfulness, I'm practicing the practices with them. So at the end of the session, both of us feel great. Like, I'm getting compensated to meditate with people basically for a living. I mean, but that's also true of, like, anytime you really love what you're doing, you are going to get this hard to quantify, but definitely concretely noticeable health and quality of life benefit that, at the end of the day or at the end of a session or, whatever, you will have just finished doing something that you really love to do. And it's going to be a boost for your energy, not a drain.
That's right. And at the end of the day, even if you're tired, it's the good kind of tired of, I know that I've been doing what I wanted to do today, or doing something that was really fulfilling. And I relate to that certainly with the motivational speaking work, because I think it's fun. There's obviously the educational component, but it's performative. I get to freestyle rap with a bunch of students, and there's so much joy and energy that comes out of that. And you're right. Sometimes I stand up there and think, wow, I'm really grateful that I get to rap with all these kids and then help them think about who they are and who they can be for the world. John, when you are looking back over your accomplishments, which of them has surprised you the most? Where either at the time or in retrospect, you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that.
I would say and I'm not sure it was the smartest business decision I ever made, but picking up and moving back to the Bay Area, in 2014. I didn't have a stable job here waiting for me. I didn't even know really anyone in the East Bay in the Berkeley, Oakland area. And so I think that move was incredibly difficult. And, there were a lot of relationships in Houston that I had built and had made and was not going to be able to benefit from as soon as I moved out here. So, but now having sort of rebuilt things, I think that's been a really, really great process for me. But definitely encourage other millennials to think long term. Just make sure that all the work that you're doing now, you're going to be able to benefit from and draw from, for years to come. And I think that's the big benefit of pursuing a path that is a passion, potentially a lifelong passion for you, is that you get to draw from that experience and benefit from that.
So what advice would you like to give to other millennials who are on a journey toward fulfillment and success?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is to be ambitious about your health. I think there's way too low of a tolerance for engaging in impure, habits, whether it's what we're eating, what we're drinking, what we're saying, to really solidify or make good on your promise to live up to your full potential. Being as healthy as you possibly can is really up there. And for some reason, moderation has gotten a lot of momentum, like in the nutritional and holistic health world. And that just hasn't held true for me at all. Whenever I moderate and say, oh, I'm going to take a meal off, or I'm going to, stay up late this once, or I'm going to, go on low sleep, et cetera, it's never paid off. All the nutritional and holistic health people that I've studied under, have really inspired me to sort of go all out and go pro, so to speak, with being healthy and to just be constantly improving my health and habits. And so I think that's a real, it's an opinionated, thing for me to say. It's, it's not something that everyone wants to hear. Like as you see this planet growing and healing itself, you're going to see people becoming much more of a purist in their lifestyle.
Yeah, a couple things there. One is I think you're speaking to figure out what works for you. The moderation might be a step to getting where they want to go. And I think it sounds like you've realized for you, like that is not helpful. That's not a helpful thing. And secondly, I think the power of rules. And so I think you're talking, not using this language, obviously, but about what are your rules for yourself and for your life. And I know that I found when I have an absolute, it makes it a lot easier because it's not a decision point. And so I think so many times there can be all these decision points. Oh, am I going to eat this or that? Am I going to drink this or that? And one specific example, I decided when I was 15 that I wasn't going to drink alcohol. And it just made that decision easy for me. So, whenever I'd be at a party or whatever and people said, hey, do you want to have a drink? I just said no. And I didn't feel any stress. I was like, oh, I kind of want to, but I shouldn't. But because there was so much clarity. And so I really appreciate what you're saying about the strength and power that comes from having really clear decisions that you've made for yourself.
Well, yeah, I really appreciate that reflection. And, hearing you talk, I'm always evolving. So it's also important for all of us to be, above all else, really kind to ourselves. I think being really, really kind is the ground, of the spiritual path. And so regardless of what goes into your mouth or into your body, being as expansively kind to yourself as you possibly can and patient with yourself wherever you are in your process is great. And it's also going to, paradoxically lead you to be engaging in behaviors that are in alignment and harmonious for you.
Absolutely. I definitely resonate with that perspective. Will you share a book or a quote that has changed your life in some way?
I was really glad that I read The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. Have either of you read this book?
I read the first half of it and was fascinated. I actually read it just in a bookstore one day, just standing there and thought, I have to finish this. And I haven't yet, but yes. Do go on, yeah.
So section 3 is a little bit interesting. Section 3 is called Grace, and he gets very, very spiritual in there. And so, spiritual in a good way, but spiritual also in sort of a little bit of a fuzzy way where he's talking about the grace of God, and he's talking about it in a way that's a little bit, can be hard to relate to for some. But the first 2 sections are just absolutely universally phenomenal. there's one section called the Alpha and the Omega, and I think it's like page 287 of like the, paperback version or whatever. And it's 4 pages that just totally changed my life. I was in the Himalayas with my good friend. I had a break from our day's work. We were working on a farm, and I'm sitting there by this creek, and I'm reading this section called the Alpha and the Omega, which means the beginning and the end. M. Scott Peck is basically saying that, excuse the theological and philosophical hand waving, but I believe that we are here to experience our divine inner nature. And I didn't even fully know what that meant at the time, but I just knew that it was important. He said, we come from God, and our purpose in this life is to return back to God and to realize our fully complete divine and human nature. There's that paradox there. And so to me, it was such a huge implication and such a huge statement. And the rest of my life starting at the age of like 25, when I learned how to become present 3 years after that, was really a sort of a continuation of that truth for me.
You said that when you first read that, you didn't know exactly what that meant. So what meaning have you discovered since then?
That's such a good question. So we're going into some interesting territory here.
We're down. We're down for it.
Yeah. So personally, I think that, self-actualization or enlightenment or realizing your own personal potential or even divine nature, that comes from a process of self-purification, from purifying yourself. The number one most salient quality of purifying yourself is releasing tension from the body. Mm. If you think of tension as being, a sign of toxicity, mild or severe toxicity. And, this is a concept that I call energetic fitness. There's anaerobic fitness in which you get big muscles or like a bigger body. There's aerobic in which you get a leaner body. And then there's energetic fitness in which you get a more relaxed body. Mm-hmm. So whether it's massage, acupuncture, meditation, yoga, qigong, prayer, right? There's all these things that the more that you do them, the better that you get at relaxing and releasing tension from your body. So to me, what realizing your own inner divine nature means is purifying yourself to the point where you don't have any tension left. And at that point, you will realize who you are and all of your potential.
That makes me want to go,
I know, that's so funny. This may be tangential, but never until I moved to Berkeley have I so many times in my life said collectively with a group of people, It's like so common in any kind of group gathering. It's just, but you're right. I mean, John, it's to your point. There's this collective releasing of all the tension that we carry with us in our lives from so many different sources, both external and internal. So I really like what you're saying there. I think it is important to think about the energetic fitness that we have.
Well, it's such a great perspective, and it also makes me feel like I'm kind of an athlete, because that's one of the, like, I'm a relaxation athlete. And then, like,
absolutely. Absolutely. For someone who wanted to be a professional basketball player until I realized I was going to be 5'5", this has given me sort of a new outlet. I lifted a ton of weights in college, ran 25 miles a week. Cardio and resistance are important for various reasons. But I think that energetic fitness is really sort of the cradle in which all those other forms of exercise should be carried and held in. And it's a simple concept, but it's very humbling, because it's like hygiene. You use meditation, you use a practice, you get a massage, you release some tension, and then, it's like some comes back. And so you clean yourself up again. So.
Well, thank you so much for everything that you've shared. This has been a great conversation. Will you let the audience know where they can find out more about you and your work?
Sure. The website is mindfultesttaking.com. You can email me at info@ And just check us out. Look at, what we're up to. And, if you know of anyone who's got a test coming up and needs some help, chilling out about it and also doing better as a result, then let me know.
Thank you, John, so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And I love what you all are doing.
The Motivational Millennial podcast is supported by Motivational Millennial Coaching Services. We help you find clarity and confidence so you can take action toward living your dream life. To learn more about one-on-one personalized support from someone who believes you have a path to fulfillment and wants to help you uncover it, visit www.motivationalmillennial.com/coaching. Hello and welcome to the Aftershow for our conversation with John Hankey. That was really interesting. What do you think?
Yes, I'm filled with mindful energy.
Absolutely. So what was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I was celebrating it when he said it, and I'll celebrate it even more now. But energetic fitness.
Woohoo!
Because if you think about it, growing up, and certainly at least as I did in rural Western North Carolina, we would occasionally talk about physical fitness. We would talk sometimes about spiritual fitness. But
did you call it spiritual fitness?
No, we referred to it as spiritual fitness, but
okay.
Religion was
right.
Right.
That was your spiritual fitness regimen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was never this idea of acknowledging your inner state.
You look shocked like right now, like it's still kind of sinking in. Like, what if we talked about that when I was a kid?
Exactly. It's such a revelation because it's the thing that's with us all the time, our energetic state. And so often we just go through life unconscious about it.
Yeah. Or feeling kind of afraid to look at it in a way that's honest.
Right. It's your inner state is all about the problems or what's wrong with you, but not about an energetic fitness that's related to the amount of tension that you hold in your life and also how you manage the energy that you have. Because I think we do have unlimited potential, but in any given day, there's only a certain amount of energy that we have. And this has been shown in psychological studies is about decision fatigue. The more we go throughout the day, the more decisions we're making, the more psychologically tired we become. And it has some really disturbing implications where they look at, for example, prison sentencing. And depending on when judges hear a certain case or a certain prisoner is actually more determinant of the sentence they give than anything specific to that person's case.
You mean when in the day?
Yeah, when in the day.
Because the judge has decision fatigue.
Exactly.
And he's just like, meh, whatever, round it up, or,
Yeah, and I think it's in Predictably Irrational, the book by Dan Ariely. I did have to look that up just now.
It seemed like it happened in an instant, but that's what pause is for.
Through the miracle of modern technology. So it was such a great reminder. And I think being out in the Bay Area, one of our friends, JG La Rochette, is doing mindfulness practice in schools. And what an incredible impact it's been having on kids. And I think, what John is doing with mindful test taking is similarly powerful, because if you can start that early, it sounds like John is often working with high school and college and postgrad students. And I think it's amazing to get it at any age, but thinking about that as a child, what a gift. And there has been such a significant impact when you look at studies of schools who've replaced detention with mindfulness practices, for example. And I'm just thinking energetic fitness, that is something I want to be more conscious of and also help promote more in the world.
And so just to let everyone know, the name of that organization is called Mindful Life Project.
JG La Rochette's, yes.
Yeah. So you can look up that work that occurs in the Bay Area. And it's so interesting because when he started talking about the concept of purification, like being the path to, or one of the ways that he looks at kind of having his energetic fitness regimen, I guess, in a way, it really reminds me of mindfulness through the lens of Buddha Dharma. And Dharma in this sense means truth. So it's just the Buddha's teaching, essentially. And Buddha Dharma talks about there being suffering in the world, suffering, like internal suffering, ways that we are stressed out or too attached to our thoughts, or our ego is causing a lot of havoc, and how to act in ways that are wise or unwise, wholesome versus unwholesome, that will reduce the amount of suffering that's going on internally. And it's about how you're treating yourself, how you're treating other people, and how you're approaching the world. And so for me, I think of that approach of mindfulness and the Buddha Dharma and like releasing suffering as the quickest path to energetic fitness. For me, anyway, that's what it made me think of.
I like it, and I think that's a good explanation too, because coming from a more conservative Christian background, purity definitely has other connotations in that religious tradition.
Different meaning.
So it's great to hear your reflection on that from the Buddhist tradition. What else did you enjoy from the conversation with John?
Well, interestingly, it was kind of along similar lines. I appreciated when he was talking about divine inner nature and how that's what life is all about, in a way, that the perspective from the book he discussed. And I don't know, it's so interesting. I actually remember a few years ago when I first started more exploration on my spiritual path, which I look at the world through a very spiritual lens from many different wisdom traditions. I like being exposed to wisdom traditions of all kinds because, I mean, I'm not gonna be too picky when it comes to wisdom. I mean, personally, I really, really enjoy it. But I remember when I first started on that path, just having this moment where I thought, life is all about enlightenment. Like, there was like a period where I thought enlightenment was like the goal of life. Like, I was like, I'm gonna go out into the mountains or in the Himalayas or something. And like, I don't know what I was envisioning. But I think when I actually have learned moving forward on that path of enlightenment, or really consciousness or being awake, I'm learning that there are moments of that. It's not a goal, like an end goal that you get there and then you're just like done, like, okay, I get everything. I mean, the Buddha did, but he's the Buddha, and like that's like, he's a teacher rather than us, aspiring to that. So I think what I've learned is that there are going to be moments where I have a lot of clarity and peace and feel really connected to my inner self and truth and intuition. And I feel really excited and confident, and there's like an ease to life. And I look around and I'm like, wow, life is amazing and beautiful. And I can be on the bus full of people, or on the BART full of people. BART is our train. And look at all of the faces around me and just love them. Be thinking about what are they experiencing right now? Everyone's tired, and just feeling compassion for them at the end of the day because everyone's packed onto this tiny train. And what are their lives like? And, when I'm at my most centered, that's how I view the world. And to me, that's what enlightenment is. And that's what my divine inner nature is. And when I can come from that place, I think the possibilities are unlimited.
Yeah, I think it's nice to think of mindfulness as a state which we attempt to be in more often versus a goal that you achieve it and then like you don't have to try anymore. I mean, that's sort of the way it's always portrayed, but you don't have to try anymore is more that you are being present and appreciative in the moment of all that is around you, like you're saying, versus somehow you're glowing with an energy because you hit a certain plateau of wisdom.
Yeah, and do you know, like, that relaxation, when we talk about relaxation fitness, comes in part from not fighting what's happening around you.
That's right.
So I could be squished on the bar, totally angry and hot, and why is this happening? And I'm here for 30 minutes and we're all tired. Or I could be listening to Alanis Morissette or whatever and just dancing with the inch of room that I have and smiling and looking around, like really enjoying being alive. That is a reduction of suffering. That is a reduction of stress in my body. And that's causing more relaxation fitness, I guess, in a way.
Yeah. And less self-criticism, less I should be doing this differently. Because so often I think that negative messaging is not accepting how we are in the moment.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a whole nother layer.
Yeah,
it's true.
In addition to the way things are outside of us, but there's also this internal environment that we can judge and want to be different. Why am I not motivated 100% right now? Why am I not happy right now? Why am I all the different things we could wish we were in that moment? And part of self-compassion, I think, is saying it's okay how you are now, and you have the power within yourself to guide yourself to a different state. But trying to force yourself into a different state usually just produces more guilt or shame or anger.
It's more suffering.
More suffering, there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, full circle.
Wow, this is so great. What an interesting turnaround here for this.
Yeah, well, thank you, John, for taking the time to talk with us about mindfulness. It's been really thought-provoking.
Absolutely.
And thank you to our awesome listeners. We hope you'll join us again next week. And in the meantime... Peace. We have a free gift for you, hot off the virtual presses. If you go to motivationalmillennial.com/free gift, you can get your very own personal transformation guide that illustrates the 4 limiting beliefs that we commonly have as millennials, and 8 motivational tools to overcome them. So go to motivationalmillennial.com. That's millennial, MILLENNIAL.com/free gift. For show notes and upcoming guests, or to learn more about Coactive Coaching, the blog, and our other awesome offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Christy Hostler and Team Podcast.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Blake Brandis.
Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!